and it is perhaps fitting that you have come together in Glasgow, once a heartland of the Industrial Revolution, but now a place to address climate change. A Leprier has finally revealed the truth about Queen Elizabeth's enigmatic comments during her final days. In a surprising finding, the expert has disclosed the Queen's hidden message, shocking royal followers. But what precisely did the Queen say to provoke this uproar, and how will this disclosure affect the monarchy? Join us to learn about this message, moments when the Queen expressed her true feelings. Queen Elizabeth Roman II spent the majority of her life peacefully inside the palace away from the world's continual attention. People rarely heard her speak openly about politics or global issues, and interviews with her were nearly non-existent. This was the royal manner of hiding personal feelings from the public, and the Queen dutifully upheld this tradition. But every now and again, at public appearances or special occasions, small glimpses of her true self would come through. People saw her sense of humor, subtle frustrations, and warmth. Back then, many people grew to appreciate her more after these basic, honest moments. As a young girl, Queen Elizabeth was not sent to school with other children. She was taught privately at home. However, when the Second World War began, she refused to sit back and observe. Instead, she chose to aid her country. She joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, where she learned to operate and repair army trucks alongside normal civilians. It was a courageous and powerful act, demonstrating to the public that she was more than just a regal figure. She was eager to serve. One amazing occasion occurred in 2007 at a huge picture shoot with renowned American photographer Annie Leibovitz. The Queen, clothed in her heavy ceremonial robes and crown, agreed to pose for photographs. Initially, the room was filled with decorum and silent reverence, but everything changed when Leibovitz recommended that the Queen take off her crown for a more comfortable photograph. Those in the room recall how quickly the Queen responded, not with a jest, but with stern words. She pointed to her regal garb and asked why she would take off the crown while she was dressed like that. "I've had enough of this," she exclaimed, visibly annoyed. Later, the media provided a teaser of the scene, giving the impression that the Queen had stormed out of the room, but it turned out that the footage had been altered out of sequence. The network later apologized, but the incident remains memorable as one of the few occasions when the Queen's irritability was captured on video. Another tiny honest moment occurred in 2002 at a public event where Prince Philip competed in a horse-driving competition. Eager photographers crowded dangerously close to the Queen's seat. She became visibly upset and told them to give her some room. It was a simple but strong reminder that even the most calm people have boundaries, particularly when it comes to personal comfort. One of the more unusual incidents occurred during a 1954 royal tour of Australia. The Queen and Prince Philip reportedly had a violent dispute inside a cottage. A film crew nearby witnessed Prince Philip rush off in rage only to be summoned back by the Queen. Though the public never viewed the footage, a biography of Prince Philip eventually revealed that it occurred. This indicated that, although appearing to be ideal in public, their marriage, like any other, had its issues. As she grew older, Queen Elizabeth's softer side emerged more frequently. A light-hearted scene was captured on video during Queen's 90th birthday celebrations at Buckingham Palace in 2016. While standing on the balcony, the Queen spotted Prince William leaning down to talk to baby Prince George. Without hesitation, she leaned down and softly instructed William to stand. The beautiful motherly moment immediately went over the internet, reminding everyone that even during happy family gatherings, tradition was important to her. However, this is one of the few occasions when the Queen has expressed her feelings. Stick with us. Former royal chef Darren McGrady spent almost a decade working in the kitchens of Buckingham Palace, Sandringham, and Balmoral. During that time, He learned a lot about Queen Elizabeth Roman II, including her favorite foods, her calm strength, and her love of order. The queen was renowned for being extremely picky about her meals. Every dish had to be meticulously planned, and every component had to be exactly right. Nothing was left to chance. Every day a specific meal was written for the queen. It detailed what she would have at breakfast, lunch, tea, and dinner. If the chefs wanted to test a new dish or make a slight change to an old one, they had to write it down and submit it to the queen for approval. Even the tiniest adjustments need her permission. The royal kitchen was a location with stringent standards, and even minor mistakes might be spotted. McGrady made a small slip one lovely summer at Balmoral Castle, which resulted in a remarkable anecdote. He opted to add veiled farmers' daughters, a light summer dessert, to the menu. It was a simple yet wonderful delicacy consisting of stewed fruits, cinnamon crumble, and soft whipped cream, ideal for a warm day in the countryside. While he remembered to write the name of the dessert on the menu, he forgot an essential detail, the recipe. The queen responded the next day with a small handwritten reply. In hasty handwriting she inquired who are the veiled farmers' daughters. It was not a joke nor a humorous query. It was the queen's method of pointing out a lapse in the palace's meticulous schedule. McGrady later admitted that it was one of the few occasions when he actually annoyed the queen in her world where everything had its place and every detail was important. A lost recipe was a big deal. Thankfully, McGrady promptly faxed in the recipe. To his relief, the queen enjoyed the dessert after tasting it. It quickly became a favorite on sweltering summer days. But the lesson stuck with McGrady. Every aspect in the palace was important. The queen's attention to detail extended beyond sweets. She held strong opinions about all of her meals. One unexpected fact was her aversion to garlic. It was never allowed in the palace cooks because she disliked the odor it produced, especially when she had to meet guests, international leaders, or attend public events. The royal chefs were well aware of this rule and never included it in her dishes. Queen Elizabeth enjoyed simple, beautiful meals. One of her favorite dishes was Dover sole with spinach and corettes. It was nutritious, softly flavored, and always nicely presented. When The Crown premiered on Netflix, it rapidly became one of the most talked about shows in the world. People all over the world were captivated by the stunning costumes, outstanding performances, and interesting story of Queen Elizabeth Roman II's life. From the moment she became queen to the numerous trials she experienced along the way, viewers enjoyed the drama, royal secrets, and behind-scenes glimpses of palace life. While fans were transfixed to their TV, the real royal family, particularly Queen Elizabeth, had a totally different perspective. Initially, the queen did not appear to be troubled by the show. In fact, Prince Edward and his wife Sophie were the first to propose that she see it. They also brought DVD of The Crown to Windsor Castle so the family could watch it together on calm evenings. Surprisingly, the queen enjoyed the early episodes. She enjoyed watching scenes from her history brought to life on TV, and she appreciated that the drama was based on genuine occurrences. Vanessa Kirby, who played Princess Margaret in the early seasons, once revealed that Princess Eugenie told her that the queen enjoyed the show. It seems that The Crown had struck a decent balance between conveying a dramatic story and demonstrating respect for the royal family. However, as the show progressed and new seasons were published, the tone of the tale shifted. The story began to center on family tensions and personal challenges. Some narratives were overly theatrical in order to keep the audience interested, which irritated the palace. The queen was particularly affected by one episode from season 2. It depicted the narrative of a young Prince Charles attending Gordonstoun, a harsh boarding school in Scotland. Prince Philip, who attended the same institution as a youngster, believed it would help Charles become stronger and more autonomous. However, in the episode, Charles was portrayed as lonely, bullied, and depressed, writing melancholy letters home. What pained the Queen the most was the way the show portrayed Prince Philip. Matt Smith, who plays Philip, portrays him as cold and unsympathetic towards his son. In one scene, he even labeled Charles weak. The scene's emotional impact on Queen Elizabeth affected viewers, but it also felt personal. It wasn't just a TV show anymore. It was her family's narrative, and it didn't seem fair. People close to the Queen say she was very upset. Even while she knew The Crown was a work of fiction, she was concerned that millions of viewers around the world might mistake it for the whole truth. Prince Philip had always been a caring, active father in his own way, and seeing him portrayed as cold and aloof broke her heart. Throughout their lengthy marriage, Queen Elizabeth has always preserved her family's reputation. They had endured scandals, rumours, and constant public scrutiny. But this was different. The Crown made private family moments public, something she believes should have remained private. Those who know the royals best believe the performance was not entirely fair. Yes, Prince Charles had freely expressed how difficult his school years had been, but the Queen and Prince Philip had made parenting decisions jointly, fretting, talking, and caring like any other parents would. It was not as straightforward as the show made it appear. Prince Charles subsequently said that Gordonstown was difficult for him, but it also gave him valuable lessons in strength and independence. Unfortunately, The Crown only showed the sad bits, omitting the important lessons he learned there. As The Crown began to highlight more recent royal incidents, the royal family became increasingly anxious. People, particularly younger viewers, began to believe that everything they saw on the show was accurate. The Queen and her advisers were concerned that people would forget the distinction between entertainment and history. The Crown may have overstepped, but the Queen handled it with dignity. Let us see how. The Queen's quiet response. For as long as anybody can remember, the royal family has maintained a simple rule: remain silent. Whatever people said in newspapers, magazines, or on television, the monarchy rarely answered. It was part of their habit to keep their thoughts secret while presenting calm faces to the world. Queen Elizabeth, more than anybody else, followed this guideline. Even as articles about her and her family made headlines, she never complained. She opted to be silent, carrying herself with grace and dignity. Whether it was a documentary, a newspaper story, or a television drama, the Queen believed it was preferable to let the public talk while she completed her duties. However, what happened behind the royal walls was quite different. Many people assumed Queen Elizabeth backed the program, but she never gave it her blessing. This misunderstanding made matters worse for the royal family. They had to be extra cautious about what they said and did, knowing that the entire world was watching. For millennia, the monarchy has emphasized secrecy and elegance. Certain aspects of royal life were intended to be kept private, away from the prying eyes of the public. But the Crown altered that. It mixed truth and fiction in such a way that readers believed every word. It did more than merely tell old royal stories. It also disclosed sad personal situations. The show addressed sensitive topics such as Princess Diana's troubles and controversies involving other family members. Each new season brought new headlines, rumors, and unending speculation about the royal family's personal lives. The Queen and her loved ones had to deal with these waves of attention time and over. A former palace employee once stated that Queen Elizabeth accepted this quietly. She recognized people's fondness for royal stories. She knew the world would always be intrigued about what happened behind the palace gates, but deep down she believed that certain matters, particularly those pertaining to her family, should be kept sacrosanct. Throughout her long reign, Queen Elizabeth adhered to one simple idea: privacy, duty, and grace come first. She led with compassion and strength, never having to explain herself. She believed that her deeds spoke louder than words. So she remained mute, Even while the crown sparked outrage and made headlines, her close friends and co-workers understood how she actually felt. They could see her grief when the show distorted intimate situations or made up stories about the people she cared for. And while she never publicly spoke out against the crown, those who knew her could detect the quiet pain beneath her serene smile. Royal weddings and the Queen's quiet heart. For the British royal family, weddings have always been more than just two people saying "I do." They are enormous events replete with tradition, history, and public interest. Each royal wedding is meticulously prepared to demonstrate unity, strength, and a connection to the past. And Queen Elizabeth Roman II nuptials were more than simply for show, they moved her in gentle personal ways. Despite the world's brilliant crowns, elegant costumes, and cheering crowds, the Queen frequently held difficult sentiments inside. She recalled her wedding day, her vows, and the weight of royal duty. And as she smiled for the cameras, her mind was sometimes filled with concerns that only a mother and monarch could comprehend. On July 29, 1981, one of history's largest royal weddings occurred. Lady Diana Spencer, then 20 years old, married Prince Charles in front of an estimated 750 million people worldwide. Diana looked like a princess from a fairy tale in her stunning white gown. The day seemed amazing. The streets of London were alive with pleasure, music, and excitement. However, behind the gorgeous settings there were silent problems. The Queen stood by Diana on Buckingham Palace's iconic balcony, waving to the ecstatic people. To the public it was a great image. However, those close to the palace later recalled that the Queen spoke quietly with Diana, sweet words full of sympathy. Realizing how heavy the crown could seem even for a young princess, while the world applauded, the truth was more difficult to accept. The night before the wedding, Prince Charles advised Diana to be brave and put on a good display for the people. However, he stated that his heart wasn't really in it. Diana felt terribly upset by these words, even though she put up a brave face. Her fairy tale was beginning to fracture. The Queen most certainly detected the tension between her son and his bride. But as usual, she remained impartial in public. Her responsibilities included protecting the monarchy, preserving traditions, and avoiding personal affairs. However, the agony of that disastrous marriage would linger in the royal family for many years. Then, in 2005, the royal family watched an entirely different type of wedding. Prince Charles married Camilla Parker B.S., the woman many people blamed for the breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage. People first detested Camilla, calling her names and passing judgment on their relationship. Opinions gradually softened, but it remained a contentious matter. Unlike the traditional royal marriages conducted in majestic churches, Charles and Camilla chose a simple civil ceremony. This raised eyebrows, particularly since Charles was the future king. When Queen Elizabeth did not attend the event, people speculated about her disapproval, but the fact was very different. As the head of the Church of England, the Queen was bound by church norms that forbade remarriage after divorce inside the church. Attending a civil wedding may have seemed like violating the rules. It was not about personal dislike. It was about responsibility. Nonetheless, the Queen made certain to express her affection in her unique way. She attended the blessing, which took place in St. George's Chapel. She then hosted a warm reception at Windsor Castle. There, she cracked a rare, light-hearted joke, comparing Charles and Camilla's long, grueling journey to a steeplechase, a challenging horse race full of obstacles. Let us look at another event that occurred during Prince William's marriage, a grandmother's quiet affection. When Prince William married Kate Middleton in April 2011, it wasn't your typical royal wedding. It was a new beginning for a family that had been through difficult times, scandals, heartache, and plenty of public scrutiny. But today felt different. William and Kate's love appeared genuine, solid, and caring. Kate was not born into royalty, but she conducted herself with such grace, composure, and quiet strength. The people adored her, and when Queen Elizabeth welcomed her into the royal family, it felt like a genuine vote of confidence from the heart of the monarchy. On the big day, more than 2,000 people packed Westminster Abbey, while the streets outside were crowded with happy faces, waving flags, and excited cheers. Millions around the world were glued to their televisions, watching this wonderful love tale develop. Kate donned a stunning gown made by Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen. It was the ideal combination of history and modern elegance. Designed for a future queen, the garment soon rose to prominence as one of history's most iconic bridal gowns. The day was filled with huge celebrations. But one small heartfelt moment stood out, a private insight of the Queen's softer side. A royal historian later described how during the wedding Queen Elizabeth leaned down and talked gently to Prince Philip. It was a rare intimate moment between two people who normally kept their feelings hidden from the world. The big gathering, flowers and music did not pique the Queen's interest. William and Kate chose this carriage for their post-wedding trip. They chose the 1902 State Landau, a stunning open-top royal carriage used in previous royal weddings. Most folks didn't think twice about it. The State Landau was classic and exquisite, having carried previous royal brides and grooms such as Prince Charles and Princess Diana. However, one carriage maintained a special place in Queen Elizabeth's heart, the glass coach. The glass bus provided more than simply a ride for the Queen. She traveled in the same carriage on her wedding day in 1947. Princess Anne had used it, as did Princess Diana. The Queen remembered family, love, and royal tradition. A trained Laprier later speculated that the Queen may have quietly informed Prince Philip that she would rather they utilize the glass coach instead. It was a fleeting moment that went unnoticed by the audience. But it said volumes about the Queen's respect for family traditions and the small things that bind the past to the present, the quiet hardships behind a royal wedding. For many years before Prince Harry married Meghan Markle in 2018, the royal family was in the public eye for all the wrong reasons. Scandals, heartache, and family issues followed them everywhere. But Queen Elizabeth Roman II, with her calm heart and steady hands, was always able to keep everything together. By the time Harry and Meghan married, the Queen had seen it all. This wedding, however, would put her patience to the test in unexpected ways. The big day was stunning. It took place at St. George's Chapel in Windsor. The guest list included royal family members, well-known figures, and foreign leaders. Millions of people around the world tuned in, eager to see this new chapter in royal history. Meghan, a former American actress and divorced woman, offered something new to the royal family. At first, Queen Elizabeth greeted her kindly. Meghan was welcomed to Sandringham for Christmas and has even attended special events with the Queen. It looked like a good start, but despite the grins, trouble was developing. Royal specialists later revealed that the days leading up to the wedding were tense. The first indication of problems came with Meghan's wedding gown. Meghan chose a brilliant pure white gown with a long 16ft veil, rather than the traditional soft cream or ivory gowns for second weddings. No one could refute it, although it did raise some questions. According to royal author Tom Bower, the Queen silently pondered why a divorced woman would wear such a traditional white gown, which is meant to symbolize purity in a first marriage. Though she never mentioned it publicly, those close to her thought she was astonished. Lady Elizabeth Anson, a relative of the Queen, later stated that the Queen thought the white was too stark. It was not about fashion, it was about the message. Camilla married Prince Charles in a delicate cream gown with no veil, demonstrating calm respect for established traditions. Meghan's stunning dress, while lovely, seems to overlook those tiny but essential traditions. Another concern was the infamous tiara incident. Meghan had her heart set on a specific tiara, but permission was denied. Angela Kelly, the Queen's personal advisor and dresser, looks after the royal jewels. She had tight guidelines about what jewelry might be worn. Rumors circulated that Meghan was dissatisfied with the way things were handled, and that the Queen learned of a conflict between Meghan and Angela Kelly. Those close to the Queen stated she was unhappy about it. She believed that everyone, particularly those who worked so hard to preserve royal traditions, deserved love and respect. Then came another difficult moment. Meghan's father is Thomas Markle. Days before the wedding, he was embroiled in a scandal for faking paparazzi shots. Later, he said he was too ill to travel. The Queen privately advised Meghan to reconcile with her father before the wedding, trying to defuse the situation, but their relationship had already ended. In the end, Meghan walked down the aisle with Prince Charles. Even Prince Harry made an unexpected request: wear his military uniform with a beard. Even if they were no longer in active service, royal officers were required to attend formal gatherings clean-shaven. However, after a private deliberation, the Queen agreed. Many others assumed it was because of her tremendous affection for her grandchild. Nonetheless, it was a modest bending of the rules. On her wedding day, Queen Elizabeth was as graceful as ever, but keen-eyed onlookers saw occasions when her demeanour seemed solemn, possibly exhausted. Despite the brilliant celebrations and happy music, the Queen had a sorrowful heart. People close to her later revealed that while she supported Harry and Meghan's marriage, she had become tired of the turmoil that seemed to ensue. Privately, the Queen made a remarkable decision. She stopped thinking about it. After years of carefully managing family issues, she decided to let go of this one. However, the difficulties persisted after the wedding. There were public debates, misunderstandings, and numerous articles in the media. Even though the Queen handled everything with her usual composure, everyone around her could tell she was getting exhausted. She'd already reached her peak. What came next triggered her, but what was this? Let's get into it. A name that broke the hush. In 2021, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle startled the world by announcing the birth of their baby girl. They named her Elizabeth Diana, a name with significant meaning. The name Lilith was not simply any name. This was Queen Elizabeth's childhood nickname. When the Queen was younger, she struggled to pronounce Elizabeth properly. She called herself Lilith. Her parents, Sister Margaret, and subsequently her adored husband, Prince Philip, all fondly addressed her by that moniker. She was known to the rest of the world as Her Majesty the Queen, but to those closest to her she was just Lilith. So when Harry and Meghan chose the name for their daughter, many people wondered how the Queen would react to it. Harry and Meghan announced that they received the Queen's blessing. However, within the palace gates, murmurs told a different narrative. Some royal insiders discreetly alleged that the Queen had not been asked before the name was made public. According to royal analyst Phil Dampier, the Queen was uneasy about it, not because of the name itself, but because of how it was communicated to the world. Some in the palace felt that people were being led to believe that the Queen fully accepted and agreed with it, when in reality she may have been caught off guard. Inside the royal household, people were equally concerned about what might happen next. Would images of infant Lyot with the Queen be used in media or public promotions? The Queen, who is always careful to safeguard her family and her image, secretly opted not to issue an official photo of herself with young Lilith. She never made a public remark about it, but everyone knew her position. This silent hurt was not the Queen's first experience with Harry and Meghan. Following Princess Diana's terrible death, Queen Elizabeth attempted to show Harry extra affection and guidance. Both as a grandmother and as a monarch, she'd always kept him dear to her heart. However, when Harry and Meghan met with Oprah Winfrey for their famous interview in 2021, the Queen was devastated. During the conversation, the pair discussed grief, mistreatment, and even hinted at racism within the royal family. These words spread over the world in minutes. For Queen Elizabeth, who had spent her whole life believing that family difficulties should be handled quietly and privately, this was a difficult moment. She believed that the crown was more than just a crown. It was a duty, a commitment to serve, and something larger than any individual. She was profoundly hurt to see it become part of public rumour. People close to her said it wasn't only the remarks that hurt her, but how intimate family affairs were exposed for all to see. She never reacted angrily to Harry and Meghan. She never removed their royal titles or made negative public pronouncements about them. But something had silently changed. The deep bond they previously had was never the same. The trust that had been carefully created over the years had eroded. As Queen Elizabeth got older, her heart felt both proud and sad. Proud that the monarchy remained strong despite all of its challenges. She was sad because she could feel herself growing apart from some of the people she cared about the most. What are your thoughts? How will this exposure harm the monarchy? Please share your ideas in the comments and remember to like, share, and subscribe. Before you leave, be sure you click on the video on your screen.